Welcome to the Lower League Report, the home of lower league soccer in America. I'm here with Southside FC owner Goddard Ogutu. Goddard, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
All right, so to start, we're going to talk about the story of Southside.
For sure. It's a fun story to tell, and, really a lot happens in that, but happy to open that up and let you know what's going on.
Perfect. So first, let's tell the people tuning in who may not be familiar with Southside, what's the story behind Southside and why was the club founded?
Yeah. The simple answer is that I wanted to stay involved in the game. I was playing and got injured and really didn't get to, quote unquote, quit on my terms as an old man, jokingly. But, it was just a way that an opportunity came when I thought I didn't have that outlet to stick with it. And it's been about 3 years now that I've had this opportunity to start the club in the very community that I grew up in to be a part of. So
was it very important to you to have the club based in Grandview where you're from?
Yeah, 100%. I'm a Kansas City kid. As far as my family roots, my parents are immigrants from Kenya but settled in Kansas City, and eventually we moved to Grandview when I was really young. So Grandview shaped me up from kindergarten to high school, and I want something that really made me, that community I was involved in and a part of.
What may a lot of people watching this who aren't really familiar with Grandview, what might they need to know about Grandview, or what would you say to them?
The first thing is that Harry S. Truman is kind of known to have lived in Grandview. I know that there's ties to Independence, Missouri, but you can actually find his farmhouse that he, lived in for a time. It's actually a museum in Grandview, which is pretty cool. And then we have a street named after him and his wife. So it's like, if there's anything that's notable in terms of U.S. history, it's him. But also, we've had incredible athletes come through. Probably the most notable professional athletes, Josh Freeman and Alex Burke, who NFL player and NBA player, who are, among notables. And there's a list of them, but
that's awesome. What makes Southside FC different from any other club in, say, the Kansas City area?
That's a good question. Really, we're trying to be a community club. We're trying to build the club, and those that are helping me do this, we're taking on the task of building something where there isn't anything. And yeah, there's a lot of clubs similar to ours in the Lee Summit area, maybe in Independence, of course in Kansas, you just hop over state line and they're all there. But I never saw anything like what we're having now. And I think that's what's going to make us really unique, is that we're building it for the area. You've got a little bit of South Kansas City, Grandview, Raymore, Belton, and it will be something new for people to latch on to. And I think it'll be a really cool experience for what we've got going.
Definitely. What's something people misunderstand about Southside?
The misunderstanding is really simple. And even I would say it's my own misconception to a degree. When you own a sports team, you're not really in it for the money. Like, the money doesn't come rolling in the way that you expect. It's a lot of grit and hard work that has to be had. If you want to lose money on a sports team, or own a business for that matter.
Yeah.
Cause there's just so much that goes into it. You've got to put your time, your energy, and your resources, and really have a proper plan. But I think that's the biggest thing. When you get into sports, it's not all glamorous.
Definitely. And I'd say too, I know like sports fields, to rent those is crazy expensive.
Oh yeah.
If you're paying for staff, even though players aren't paid, there's still a lot of costs that go into it. So I completely agree. That's a big misconception.
There's a lot of cost. And it's very surprising too. You kind of get to it, and then all of a sudden you're like, you got to rent this field for a few $1,000s for the season, or you're training and all the other things that come with it, and you're maybe talking to somebody, you're trying to barter a little bit, like, hey,
Exactly.
we're not really.
Once you get up there, you got the travel costs too,
Yeah.
where you're going. So.
Exactly. So it's takes a little bit of time and a little bit of know-how. How do I come into this conversation to make things happen?
So Goddard, I know this is your first season, or this was your first season being at Grandview High School for where you guys played your home games. How did you feel that went for your first season there?
I think it went actually very well. Some of those conversations when you're kind of coming in and you're almost asking a lot of the facility, and they have all kinds of events, but I've never seen anything like ours come into that space. So there's a little bit of a learning curve that happens, but that's with anything. But outside of that, I thought it was great. The school really was gracious enough to open up their doors and allow us to use everything that we need, because league requirements ask a lot of us. And so, you're trying to navigate that, and you've got a few people that you have to communicate with. From my conversation started with the superintendent, and then eventually it makes its way down the line, and then you're talking with the AD and everybody in between, because you're just trying to piece this together. But ultimately, I think we have a great founding, and it helped that it was my high school. I grew up at Grandview, so I kind of came in as someone who was a part of the community and is continuing to build something in the community. So that made conversations probably a lot easier than most people would realize. So, and I'm very fortunate, because, having that platform is huge.
Definitely. Do you think you'll stay at Grandview High School for the long term, or at least the short term within the next season or two?
Yeah, that's the plan. I want to build and really create connections. There's a lot of plans and hopefully initiatives that I'll put in place that will work with not only the district itself, but with the city. Because again, we're wanting to be a community club and really give back to the community just as much as they're helping us. We want to be able to turn around and help them. So we plan to be there for as long as we can.
Definitely. And then one thing I want to go over real quick. Do you mind sharing with the audience what you do for a living? A lot of people think all these club owners are rich individuals and have millions of dollars, which is 100% not the case. So if you would mind sharing that, I think it would be a good perspective for them to see.
Yeah. For me, I work in insurance, and I have for several years. And I've been in that quote unquote lower end banking financial, space. It's not anything glamorous. Been a teller and a teller supervisor and a personal banker, and then eventually get into insurance sales. So, it's not, as you said, glamorous. I'm not making loads and loads of money that I can just turn around and pull out of one pocket to put into the other, because you still have a family. I still got to take care of them and really make sure that they survive, they're provided for, because that's my number one priority. This is the next thing that I'm just building for the future.
Perfect. That was the end of part one. So now we'll move into part two, which is talking about last season. So obviously the results weren't what anyone hoped for with this season, considering it was your first year in the Midwest Premier League. From your perspective, what happened?
Man, that is loaded. It's very loaded. And I think context leading into this previous season is a little bit of, knowing what happened before to get us to now. And, when you're flying high your first 2 years, albeit in a different league, different standards, and you feel like you have your foundation, and then you kind of move over, and then, you realize you, had a few things happen, and then you're just trying to re-navigate and find your way, because one, you're in a new league at a higher level, and it's demanding. And so you're just trying to fit the puzzle pieces where you can. And that's difficult. And, you could say these pieces that I assembled together didn't quite fit, but I think that's the beauty of being at these lower levels, you're kind of seeing what's out there. For someone like me, I'm learning on the fly. I'm not this prodigy founder and president. I've tried a few businesses here and there, and those opportunities didn't land in the way that I hoped. So I'm learning as I go, and I'm building, and every mistake is an opportunity to build and get better. But there's a lot there. There's a lot.
Looking back on the season, what was the biggest lesson you think you learned?
The staff you have around you makes a big difference. You can't do this entirely on your own. If you don't have the right people, you find yourself doing everything. And when you do everything, sure, you become the jack of all trades, but what do you lose in that? What are you not, because you're not putting 100% into something and 10% into everything, which means you're only getting out 10% of each of those things, and you're not having a fully functioning club. So that was probably the biggest thing that I learned.
I want to circle back real quick here. One thing that I feel like, from what I've seen of Southside, you guys are one of the best media clubs in the league.
I appreciate it.
I wanted to ask you how important the media side is for you guys, and being able to be found on socials and to make content that truly stands out in the league.
Man, that's gotta be a kudos to my marketing director. And that's his realm, Matthew, who is also my brother. So, and so I'm very fortunate that, because that's his realm. That's what he does also for his 9 to 5. And he prides himself on putting out great quality work. In the beginning, it was like fake it till you make it type of thing, where it's like, you've got to be able to create something that you want it to be, and eventually the pieces follow. And I think that's kind of been the model. It's like, we're building as if we're already at the top, and then we're expecting those pieces as we work to kind of start falling into place. And is it messy? At times, but we're making our way.
And at least from the outside, it doesn't look messy. I mean, maybe in the beginning it was, before you guys got to this new league, but I feel like since you guys have been in the Midwest Premier League, it's looked really good on all your socials. So good job of that.
Well, appreciate it. Yeah. It's, again, Matthew does incredible work. He takes time to really create, I mean, you've known us long enough, but you've seen that he creates new aesthetics as the season comes. So he really puts time and work into his craft for that, for sure.
Definitely. Was there a specific match or a moment to you that truly defined the season?
There's two different ways to maybe look at that, but from a solid perspective, or like a hard work perspective, the latter half of the season, in terms of being in the Midwest Premier League, those last 3 games, I think, really had a lot of momentum built with it. Because after really having some crushing defeats, honestly, it took some moments to find the footing, and you can kind of see through some of those results in games, 6, 7, 8, 9, and ultimately to our last game of the season with the win. There was some momentum that was being built, and I've got to credit the players on that one, and the coaches that were involved, because it's easy to quit. It's like, oh, we're not good. And it's very easy to just go by the wayside and say, whatever, we'll get it next year, or I'm done playing with you guys. So I've got to credit the players for really putting in that heart and the hard work. And even for us, in terms of our front office, there's been a lot of adversity in trying to keep the momentum going, because it is hard, because when you don't see the results you're hoping for, you've got to look for something else to hang on to and know that we will get to where we want to eventually. But for now, this is the piece that I'm using to keep my momentum and my almost like positive aspects, keeping myself moving forward.
Definitely. I know a big part of the season was the head coach change that you made. How did you feel that changed the season?
Yeah, that was a dynamic change. And quite honestly, I've never been in that position before. I mean, we've only been around for, 3 years. And yes, we've had coaching changes before from year 1 to year 2 and now year 3, but those were for very specific reasons and not in the way that this one occurred. And it's unfortunate with how that happened. And soccer, especially at that level or the higher levels, it tends to be about results. And so there had to be a little bit of a reset. And unfortunately, sometimes it comes at the expense of the manager. It's kind of hard to say to all your players, and you don't really if you still have a manager, but you don't have a team, but the other way around, you still have a team, but you don't have a manager. And so, those have very different effects. Unfortunate. But I think it's just kind of a byproduct of how the sport works. But the team definitely put in some work, and yeah, there were still some results that didn't go our way, but eventually they found their footing and they worked hard and they got the win at the end of the season.
Definitely. Do you feel the head coach that you brought in after you made the change, will he be staying on to next season, or are you looking for a new head coach throughout the offseason?
So our current coach is an interim right now.
Okay.
And so the plan wasn't for him to be the head coach, nor is it moving forward. At this current moment, yeah, we're close to really having that in place of a new coach. And there have been a few new additions and pieces that we've added recently that will kind of change the trajectory of things. I just brought on someone to help be a sporting director, which is huge. That takes a lot off my plate that I don't have to be involved in. I finally got a director of club operations with, basically a GM to kind of help navigate certain aspects. And so we're in a position to really operate very, very differently than we did in years past. And it's really exciting what this future will look like.
And that seems exciting, having a lot more people coming in to help the club and help it grow and to take responsibility of different areas. The more people you have in the club, obviously, each one can focus on a very specific area.
Yeah.
And that can make a big change in the long term.
Yeah. And that was always the goal. But unfortunately, in life, things don't always go as planned. And I found that this year, that was that moment of a lot of things were very difficult to handle and go through. And I think I'm seeing the light, the proverbial light at the end of the tunnel. And it's taking that moment to really find that footing. And I'm glad we're there. And I think I've got the team to really help me do that.
What do you feel the team brought to the league that maybe didn't show up in the league table? Was there any maybe standout players that helped the team in the tough times?
Yeah, there were definitely players that did come and show up and really created some impact and really, yeah, there are a few that you can definitely name and say, I've got these, 5, 6 players or 4 players, whatever that number is. And you do need those players that are going to provide either the leadership or that spark of inspiration and creativity. But I think the one thing that maybe people started to realize towards the end of the season is that the players we had needed to dig deep, because no one really has fun playing when things aren't well. You always have fun when things go well. Like, it's just the nature of things. You're winning. Even if you have that occasional loss, there's this momentum of like, we'll get the next one. But when you're constantly getting battered or, those moments of last minute defeats or large losses, you're just like, what am I even doing here? So I think grit is the biggest thing that these players really had that doesn't really show always in the table or in the score lines. Don't get me wrong, there's still players that, on the field your body language tells you a lot. But I think overall, for those that were really consistent in the team, generally showed that.
Definitely. I know at this level of the pyramid, players switch teams very often. Are you worried about that going into the offseason, that some of your players might leave for better clubs, or what are your thoughts on that?
Naturally, when you have a season like we did, you're going to be worried. But I think it comes down to, what are you providing for your players, or what are you working towards to hopefully help mitigate that? And I think this is an opportunity for us in the off season to really create some systems in place that maybe help with that for the future. And we have a lot of aspirations, but it's going to take us a moment, because quite honestly, we're rebuilding our foundation. We thought we had it, but things just kind of happen. And so now we're rebuilding that foundation. So if they want to go, and that's okay. Like, players come and go, but I don't think we can fully try to hang on every single player, nor is it realistic to hang on every single player.
Exactly.
Sure, you're going to have your long-standing players that you just say, I've got to work to keep them, or they're a good fit for leadership to help build up future players that come in. But, you're not going to keep every player. Players are going to leave for one reason or another. Everybody has different life things and expectations and goals, and sometimes they just don't line up, and that's okay.
Definitely. And I know every club's a little different with this. For Southside specifically, I know this season you had to recruit a lot of new players, with some leaving before the season for other teams. I'm just curious, at Southside, who's responsible for that? Is it the head coach? Is it more you as the owner? Is it maybe a GM, somebody of that sorts?
So this year was quite a bit different, where the coach that we had in the beginning, he was primarily responsible. And we did have some of the players that we knew we were going to bring into the team also helped with drawing in players in. But I've got a new system in place that we've had to work towards. So in the future, we're going to have someone instill, like our sporting director, who'll be coming in and helping build that. And then really, when the coach comes in, or the manager, that they're just worried about the first team. They're not, hopefully they'll be involved in recruitment, but that's going to be really our quote unquote our sporting director's role, like help with the recruitment and plan those pipelines and build out things and any future plans and programs that we have. But that's going to rest on responsibility.
And when you obviously have somebody helping take all the pressure off the head coach for recruiting, it definitely shows up on the field. So it's good that you guys are working towards that. And I expect to see better results next season for sure, because it makes a huge difference.
But yeah, it will, because I was so involved, it took away from the things that I really should have been working on quite a bit. And again, when you're dividing your time up, instead of worrying about 100% on, what's in front of you, and you're splitting it 10 ways, you don't always get the best results. And I kind of was a victim of that, just due to the nature of how things played out. And again, to go back, that was probably the biggest lesson I learned this year.
All right, and we're going to move to part 3, which is more going over deeper stuff inside the club. Why are you still optimistic about Southside?
That's a good question. I think because I have the people around me, and I've started building the people that believe in the project that we have here. It's quite easy to say, well, no one's here helping me, or, whatever it is. And then all of a sudden you're just like, forget it. But I think when I talk with people and network. And I'm starting to have these conversations with people in the community, albeit friends or somebody that I just met. They seem to, when they are able to kind of visualize a little bit or snippet of what I'm trying to get to. I think it's those moments that are huge to me that I can confidently say, man, I walked away from that conversation thinking they're excited to see what we're building, or they're at least intrigued to kind of keep up with us. And I think those are the things that where it's like, oh man, I think we're slowly starting to catch fire. And I think that's the exciting part.
Definitely. For you, what does success look like at the club over the next 2 or maybe 3 years?
Man, success. There are a few things that, obviously we can allude to. The most simple things are always going to be, how the team is performing on the field, or, this whole be a championship organization, which is, and which we want to be that. And we have to have some level of that thought to be able to get ourselves there and on the vision board. But from my perspective, there's a couple things. And one of them is first and foremost is being that community club, being plugged into the community. I think where the simplest answer I can give to that is if we can reach a point where people see the name of Southside every single month and it's not necessarily associated to a match day, I think that's where we will really find our wins. And I think that's the place where I want to kind of hang my hat on. It's like, we're doing clinics, we're doing food drives, we're doing events that we're hosting or sponsoring or being a part of that are in the community. That's going to be the biggest off-field wins that we could possibly have. And I think that's the form of success that we're also looking for.
So how important is the Southside Academy going to be for the club once it gets off the ground?
It's going to be very important to me. I know that there's hundreds and thousands of academies basically around Kansas City. They exist everywhere. But, to have something in Grandview, I think would be really cool and would really further encapsulate the idea of really being around the community and really drawing in the support that we're looking for, but also we want to help drive development within the community. And what we're hoping for, or what we're built towards, is, adding that direct translation into the local schools as well. Because not everybody has, an opportunity to be a part of a community, and we're going to try to find a unique way to do that. That's going to obviously take a moment, but we want to put it out there. And that's going to start with the camps and clinics that we're going to be creating and trying to get people involved. But that academy is going to be very important because that's going to be the future generation players of Southside. And we want to be able to have kids come through our program and be excited about, oh, I get to play for my local program that is literally in my backyard. I didn't have that. And so I hope I can provide that for the generations to come.
If someone were to come to their first Southside match next season, what should they expect and what would they experience?
There was a lot of learning curves on the match day experience. And, with that said, I think first and foremost, it'll be a family focused atmosphere. We're going to be putting a lot of work into that. But even from this year, it's, families can come and enjoy great game, hopefully, even though they were difficult, you come enjoy the game. And you're going to also support the local booster club. We had partnered with the Grandview Booster Club, and so they had the concessions, and so they were able to reap the proceeds of that. And so those little things of not only are you going to be supporting us, but you're going to be supporting the school district and teachers and the students that are involved in that. And those are the kind of things that you should be looking out for when you're coming to a Southside match.
How important is that local community in building the club and making sure you guys accomplish your goals?
It's going to be everything, because sure, we can build a national identity or a regional identity, and we don't have a strong enough reach like clubs in the slightly upper tiers or tiers above us. They're going to be the ones that will make that last minute decision on if they want to come to a game or not. And being in their hearts and minds is going to be very, very important, because they're going to be the ones that are going to carry us when the times are difficult. And so it's going to take a lot of energy and strategic planning to kind of give them a product that they're going to be excited about. So I see that as ultra important, that we really work hard to draw them in.
Definitely. What kind of players do you want representing Southside?
Players that are going to work hard, players that are wanting to be leaders, and that are wanting to build something or be a part of something that's going to be a little bit bigger than themselves. Because one of the things that, I told the players early on was that while us in the front office are kind of doing the administrative work and the building and the planning, they're the heartbeat of the team, honestly. The fans come to see them. And as an organization, we're providing a platform. And so we need people to be great role models for kids that might be future players in the program, or they might be lifelong fans, whether casual or super fans. They're going to see us, and they're going to see what we're putting out, who we're involved with. And so we need players that are able to understand that, and they may not always want to be a part of it, but they need to be able to respect that and give sometimes the time of day to the fans and the supporters that we have.
Definitely. We're going to move on to talk more about the Midwest Premier League.
Mm-hmm.
So to start, what has the Midwest Premier League experience been like?
The experience has been great. It's been challenging because where we were before was, it's a higher level than what we were doing. And really the last league we were playing in is kind of in a little bit of a weird zone. It's not rec, but it's, not in that elite amateur semi-professional state quite in the same way that the MWPL is. And so there was a calling to a higher standard, and it was challenging. It really was, because all the things that you got to get for it, in the previous league, it's like, just find a field and play, and, the field we had previously, there were a lot of complaints about it. I get it. It was not great. It was, a lot to be desired, but also, again, when you don't do this for money and you're trying to figure out where you can save the dollars, you gotta go sometimes where you can. But yeah, it's like, man, you gotta get a field, and it's gotta have, seating and a scoreboard and record your games, locker rooms. And so it does call for a lot. It does force us to raise to a higher standard, of which it is great, but also, it puts a lot of work on those of us in the front office of just like, we got to make this work. We have to make this work. Otherwise, who knows what's going to happen, So, but yeah.
I would say too, another thing with the Midwest Premier League is how many more teams are in that league than there were in your prior league. I'm going to say there's like 70 something teams, maybe even more
ridiculous.
There's a lot in the Midwest Premier League. So raises you to a higher standard too. If you do make the playoffs, you'll be playing teams from St. Louis, possibly Chicago, and all the areas around there. So that'd be a huge thing for you guys when you get to that point.
And to your point, you're right. There's a lot of teams in the league across the Midwest, and Great Plains, just finished winning the Gateway, the Gateway Conference Championship. So they won, after winning the Gateway West, and then they played the winner of the Gateway East. So to cap off a season in that kind of fashion, for them is, It's a grueling season that, it takes time to get there, and kudos to them for doing that. And we're hoping that in the near future that's going to be us, that we have the opportunity to be able to compete for a title like that.
What surprised you the most about the level of competition in the Midwest Premier League?
It is unforgiving. There have been a number of games where, it's just unforgiving. And that's okay, because that's competition. That's, how you sometimes build your brand, or sometimes on the backs of those tough moments or great moments, depending on what side of the coin you're on. But yeah, it's just, you've got to be willing to take some of those shots on the chin and learn from them.
I know we talked about this a little bit already, but how has playing in the Midwest Premier League helped grow the club?
Because the league has a much wider reach, because it is across the Midwest. It's from Michigan down to us, and kind of that, diagonal aspect, and all the states that are involved. So you've got a much further reach. So there is an opportunity for more eyeballs, and really being able to showcase what unique things you're doing, and even craft some very interesting stories that you normally wouldn't get if you're just operating in your local only, Kansas City league. Not that you can't craft any stories, but it just looks so much different, because, some players, not every single player is local. We've got some players that are from an hour away, a player from Topeka, so it's like, oh, you have a chance to really tell a different story than if 100% of your players are from that area. It just looks slightly, it's different, not that one's better than the other. It's just different. And so you have really some cool opportunities to do something interesting.
And like how you were saying, some of those stories, I know last season, Boff St. Louis ended up making it to the first round of the U.S. Open Cup, which was a huge thing for the league. So it shows too that there's potential for amazing runs and stories like that. So it's a great thing to see in the league.
Yeah, I'm hoping that we can be that run. I want to task, or pride myself on the idea of that one day we will, host a U.S. Open Cup match, even if it's a qualifier at Grandview. I think that'd be really cool to kind of add that extra history. I know I mentioned before, having someone who's played in the NFL be at Grandview, and a former NBA player, and, there are some former star college athletes that have come through Grandview, but adding that unique story of like, hey, a U.S. Open Cup happened here, I think would just be fascinating.
Yeah, when I went to the Boff St. Louis Open Cup game in St. Louis, and that was such a fun atmosphere. It was such a cool game. Yes, they lost, but it was so cool just to see a professional side go in there and play away to a team in the Midwest Premier League. It was a super cool experience.
So out of curiosity, because I know that you've got to experience that, what was your experience there? What did you find the most interesting about that?
I would say how many people showed up that weren't necessarily fans of either team. They just showed up because they were in St. Louis and they wanted to come support another St. Louis team, even if it wasn't necessarily their specific team that they normally support. So like if they supported another team in, say, the Midwest Premier League, or maybe they supported the MLS team there, they still decided to come out and show support to the St. Louis team that did make it.
Yeah. Maybe one of these days we'll be there too, that we can have just people randomly show up because, hey, because my marketing director had all the media in place and people were like, what is going on? And they just show up. But we'll see. Time will tell. And that's the goal we have. That's a dream.
Definitely. If you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice before the season started, what would it be?
That's a really good question. I feel like there's so much I could tell myself that I could, like, hey, here's a list of 10 things. Like, I think there are a couple of things that kind of come to mind is especially starting to be on the other side of that tunnel, the tunnel that has felt very dark, is it will start to come together. Just keep those goals in mind and stay focused no matter how difficult it is. And I think it's also about being able to build a trusted team around you. I think those are ultra important. Because I think if you have that, you kind of find yourself relaxing in certain areas, or, not worrying as much. And sure, I'm going to worry because I founded the club. So there's an element of, my skin in the game and wanting to see it do well and have this product that everybody enjoys. But also knowing that I've brought them on to be able to do do a specific task or a specific role. And so, having a team that you trust pretty wholeheartedly for the most part, and there's going to be those things that you're going to navigate through, because when you hire people, there's a little bit of a getting to know how the person operates a little bit and whatnot. So there's an aspect of, we're still figuring things out a little bit, but you still, I think, need to have at least some kind of initial trust in their ability, or even not necessarily ability, their hunger to want to get things done. Their hunger to be able to say, hey, I was tasked with this project. Sure, I'm going to mess up, but I'm actually want to see this happen, or I want to be able to succeed. And so those people are invaluable.
Why should someone become a Southside supporter today?
You're asking some pretty solid questions here. I think it's, that idea of a local kid building a local product to give back to the local community, that's the aspirations I'm really trying hard to hang my hat on, and say, if anything, I felt like we did that well. And so I think you're going to find us to be very unique in that regard of, taking a moment and, the players coming and celebrating. I think one thing that was really fun at our final game of the season, which, we might have maybe some video footage in the archives now, but, we had some kids that kind of came, actually, I think it's the son of one of our photographers. That his son had brought some friends with him, and they created essentially this cheering section. And so we're kind of having what we hope to be the formation of our fun supporters group, and to have the players take a moment with the kids and recognize them and say, hey, we heard you the entire game. Thank you. I think that's the moments we're aiming for. That's what we're looking for. And I think that will be the start of something really fascinating moving forward.
Oh, let's add too, whenever I went to the BOF St. Louis Open Cup match, that was one thing they had there too. They had a couple people with drums and stuff, and it made such a big difference in the game. And you could tell it was okay, it would actually be intimidating going in there and playing against them. So it definitely makes a big difference.
For sure.
What's one thing you're most excited about heading into next season?
There's a few initiatives that we're trying to put in place that involve really connecting with both fans and the local community. And I'm excited to get those started. There's obviously going to be a period of trying to sort those out and figuring out what we want that to look like in partnership with, with businesses and entities and whoever else is involved. But I'm excited about that. And also, I believe that we finally got the right structure in place for our organization, that we have a huge opportunity to really craft something special.
Is there anything that we didn't cover that you would like to say to the people before we go?
Sometimes people don't realize, I think, how important, fan support is in terms of, there's the aspect of build it and they will come, but you still got to be able to show people, like, even if you come to one game and experience it, I think that's more than what anybody could possibly do for us, and I think at the local level, I think that's really ultra important from our perspective of just saying like, hey, we've got something unique for you. And sure, we're not going to be everybody's cup of tea, but I would still say, come check us out just once, and say, oh man, it was interesting, like not quite my story and that's okay. But, there is incredible soccer that's happening in Kansas City or incredible stories that are happening every single season, every single week. There's always, a new story out there, but, I would say, bet on us, see what we have to offer. Even when the season isn't great, you're going to see people that are working hard to build something that goes beyond themselves.
Perfect. Well, Goddard, thank you for your time.
Yeah.
Wish you and Southside the best of luck going into the future. And it was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much. Thanks. I'm glad to be here.